Hello, welcome to the Ignite Your Leadership Prowess podcast. I'm Muted Adebowale, and today with me I have another phenomenal guest, Anita Anello. Anita Anello works with corporate moms and successful corporate women leaders who are advancing their careers and looking at taking the next step in their career, being a mom and being a woman of faith, mostly. Anita, I'm going to give it to you. Can you please tell us exactly how you help successful corporate working moms and what you do to them to help them navigate the challenges they may be going through or change their life or the trajectory of their career?
Oh, you bet. I'm so excited to be here and just to serve you and your audience. So, first, I just want to honor you for what you're doing for women around the world. It's really, really powerful. So, thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah. And a little bit of my story is I had come from the corporate space. I was a successful executive. I'll just give you kind of the high level overview. And I just kind of had this God sized idea of a dream. First and foremost, when my kids were little, it was to be able to stay home and homeschool them. And then after a long kind of early retirement and a long season of homeschooling, I had another dream and a desire to go back into the world of business and really have my own business, and in that empower other women of faith to find that delicate balance that's unique to all of us of I want to be able to intentionally raise my kids, but I also have this great skill set inside of me that I want to be able to share with other women. For me, my corporate expertise came from real high level, what's called enterprise level project management. I just have this gift of being able to see with wisdom, um, solve problems and help ladies walk through the process of discovering what that specialized knowledge is inside of themselves and then working out a plan to do that. And so that's what I've been doing in my business for the last 5 years. I've helped hundreds and hundreds of women go through the same process because don't we know it's hard. There's a lot of information out there. We get this idea from the online space, especially that somehow like revenue events are we're only successful if we're like a millionaire overnight and all that kind of stuff. But there's so many pieces there that we can unpack. So what I do specifically is I walk the ladies in my community through what I call a 6-step blueprint. And it's just a process that's unique to each individual that allows them to go through the process of discovering that unique skill set and then building a business, a profitable business. We'll be clear on that around that skill set.
Okay, that's powerful. So, how do you integrate faith-based principles into your coaching approach for corporate working moms, and how does it contribute to their career advancement?
I love that question. So I am a woman of faith. I feel like this is where God has called me. And what I found is that in the corporate, so part of it is part of my story. What I found like in the corporate world, I had a hard time really pressing into the woman that God had made me. And I know for a long time I had this idea that really in order to be as successful as all my male counterparts, because I was in the tech space, so there was, a big chunk of the of my coworkers were all guys. But in order to compete with them and compare with them, I felt like for a long time I had to like strip off everything that made me good as a woman and compete with guys on like a toe-to-toe basis. And God just showed me over a long season that that really wasn't how he designed me, because as women we just have different we have different fears, we have different aspirations, we have different demands on our schedule. And not that men don't have some of those same things, but the way that we process those as women was very different. And so really what was shown to me in kind of just a process of walking through what it looked like to build a business was like the Lord had showed me, hey, I want you to go after these ladies that are in the same spot that you are, that they're struggling with either I want to or I need to work. How do I do that? And how do I still be intentional with my family? And where's wisdom in that? And um, I want to be able to have a healthy relationship with my husband and not really it's kind of like this underlying this undercurrent of I want to be able to go after these things in my life, this success that I feel like God's called me into, but without losing everybody in the process. Because what's the point of that, right? And being, what would be good about my life if I had the money and the title and the accolades, but I lost my family along the way? Like that seems pretty silly to me. And I just had these introspective pictures in my mind of when I get to the end, I want to be able to look back and say, I was able to serve a big community of women without losing my faith or my family in the process. And so that's kind of the basis of it. It started the journey when it comes to our faith. Like I'm always going to talk in context of this is what God's showing me and revealing to me. But honestly, my feeling is wherever anybody is at in their faith journey, like it's totally fine. Just be in that spot. Um, for me, oftentimes when I consult on do one-on-one consulting with a woman, with a client, or group in a group setting, what happens is I just kind of get these downloads, these revelations of, hey, this is maybe how to solve it, solve the problem that she's running into, instead of maybe like a worldly solution of, just how do I want to say? Just use some of the tools that are out there. Really, oftentimes it's a wisdom approach that says instead of looking at a problem linear, how do we look at it from a different perspective and understand kind of the whole picture instead of one little slice of it.
Wow, that's really great. Wonderful. I, I hear you saying how women struggle to balance their work, their career advancement, their family, their time, and all of these things. So when you're working with your clients, what specific strategies do you employ to empower them to balance their professional lives, their personal lives, whatever they're pursuing, within their career or their dreams, aspirations? How do you help them to find that balance?
Yeah, so I just actually put together a new tool on that specific topic on time management. We'll make sure and include a link in that in the show notes. But really it's kind of a combination of a couple of things. I have my system that works for me and it kind of looks like this. On the night before, so let's say last night, I sit down and I journal what were some of my wins of the day and what's going to be my plan for the next day. Like how am I going to win the day after? And so that helps me. I just write down those three things that help me to say, okay, tomorrow my priorities are this. Then in the morning when I wake up, I kind of have a like a rudder for the day. Because what I found was what I used to do is I'd wake up in the morning and I'd have like, I don't know, like 20 or 30 things that I wanted to accomplish for the day. And that would make me a little bit crazy. And so my routine in the morning, my discipline in the morning is also to sit down and spend some time in the word, spend some time praying, spend some time exercising so that in my mind, my body, my soul, my spirit, I feel like I'm equipped to go through the day. Um, and then I start diving into what I want to do. I pray and I ask the Holy Spirit real specifically, like of all the things I could do today, what are the 1 to 3 things that I really need to focus on? That helps me narrow down and also narrow down the list of the possible things. It also helps me to really have peace going into the day instead of, I have these 20 things I have to do. That God shows me, no, 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 I want you to focus on doing this thing with the kids or this one thing in the business or this one thing for with your husband or something like that. And then some of the other strategies that I use are really just boxing some time so that I have the ability to sit down and focus and get some things done. I know as women, oftentimes, or just people, there's so much information that's coming at us, so much email and phone and text and all this kind of stuff. Just being able to carve out time that says, okay, today I'm going to focus on just taking one step forward on this one task or these two tasks or something like that. And I really carve out time on my calendar to be able to do that. So you hear in that there's really it's a system that I use on a daily basis of figuring out what I want to do ahead of time and then walking that out on a daily basis and really just taking time. The other thing that I have done, what things that my coach helps me to do is take a pause during the day. I can be the type of personality and the type of person that can just like go, 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 go like crazy all day long and then not really remember to take a breath or peek my head outside the office and engage with everybody. So what I'm saying is I've designed a system that works for me, but I also want to encourage each lady that's listening or each person that's listening today, you have a system that works for you. So while I can share the system that works for me and the disciplines that I use that help me to be and feel successful, I also want to encourage you, your system's going to look a little bit different. It doesn't have to be the exact same as mine because each of us have unique situations. Each of us have maybe a different number of kids at home. Maybe kids are in school. Maybe you're homeschooling. Maybe you're working you need to go to an office or whatever that looks like. So, what I love is the structure that then each individual can kind of plug in the pieces that are unique to them because otherwise, at least in my experience, a system like take, for example, Atomic Habits, and that's a phenomenal book where the author lays out how do we build healthy habits. But if I don't plug in the pieces of my life into that system of Atomic Habits or my system, it's not going to work for me. I'm going to try it, and it's like trying on a jacket that doesn't fit. I'm going to take that off pretty quickly. And so what I really want to do is equip women and meet them where they're at. I want to equip clients where they're at, and so they're able to pull in the pieces that say, "Hey, this is what works for me." So the last little piece of that is we always want to acknowledge the season that we're in, right? When my kids were really little, the things that I was able to do was very different than I was when I was nursing babies or had toddlers or now teenagers. Like I always want to just kind of openly acknowledge like what season are you in and then how does that fit in your life in your system to be able to go after the things that you're called to do in this season right now.
That's really, really powerful. And I like the way you analyze that, because everybody will be at different, season. I like that one. Everybody will be at different season, different time. And the fact that, how you equip people is to meet them where they are, that is very person-centered, strategic and individualized so that you can help them to achieve their specific goal, ambition, and tackle their specific obstacles. And the way you said, the discipline you use, because when we call it systems and habits or routines, regime, and all of these things, if we're not disciplined with them and intentional, it probably will not work for us. So thank you so much. The way you've used, analyzed the question and used the words are really, really powerful. Thank you so much for that. So in your experience, how does faith play a role in resilience and overcoming obstacles for working moms in the corporate world?
Mm. The one thing that I would say that I kind of wish I knew earlier, and this is how it works itself out in my faith. I almost wish that I'm in a season right now where we've just walked through some really difficult things. So my husband has had some issues with his health, and it's caused us to really kind of rethink and reset in our household. I one thing that I'll say as an encouragement, I wish earlier in my walk of faith, I was able to really lean into the promises of God for myself a little bit more confidently. And so when God's word says, you know, I've shown you this vision, I'm not going to take it from you. When God's word says, be strong and courageous and don't be afraid, we're going to walk you through this. Then what I'm finding now where I am in my walk is really declaring God's word out loud. And that helps to build my faith to have the confidence that says, no matter what, God's got us. And so that's kind of, I'll set that as the foundation. So, it's been about maybe 18 or 20 months or so. So a little bit, almost 2 years ago, my husband had a medical crisis. And really to get a big picture, went through three big things in about 6 to 8 weeks. It was like marriage crisis, medical crisis, job loss, all within the same thing. And one thing I distinctly remember is I was praying with one of my pastors, and she was reminding me, Anita, God's taking you this far. He's not going to let you go at this point. And just having somebody else speak that faith into my ears. And that actually was like a catalyst from going from what could have been or what was like a fearful situation to have it shift gears and then start declaring like, nope, Lord, you already showed me that my marriage is healthy and we'll overcome this challenge. This health scare that we have, it's hard, it's gnarly, it's something that is difficult to be able to walk through, but we're going to persevere no matter what. Going through job loss in the midst of that, and being able to recognize, you know what, I've done this before. I can do this again. I can look at my kids and genuinely say, no matter what's going to happen, we know that we're going to be okay because I'll figure out a way to, I'll figure it out. Well, like, you know, my kids already knew that I was a person that they could trust, a woman of integrity, that when mommy says, hey, things are going to be okay, their whole countenance shifted and they could settle into like, oh, okay, mom says it's going to be okay. We can trust that because I already had they already had the evidence in their lives of me being a person of integrity that said, when it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. And I don't need to worry about, mom's going to take care of it. So in my faith journey, some of the things that I practically and tactically do, because I love to give practical tips on what's actually working, it was leaning into God's word. That helped to give me the courage to go forward and help me to build my faith. It was leaning into my community, the people that know me and love me and trust me, and I trust them the most, and sharing the raw and the hard and the difficult, and kind of like I have a podcast that's called The Messy Middle. It's like that muck and the mire, the deep, difficult things of life, sharing that together transparently and saying like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And having them, then the next thing was we would pray about it and we would just say, okay, I don't have to worry about everything, but God, can you just show me the next one step? So that was another element. It's slowing down and taking a break from the overwhelm so that I could just take the very next step of integrity to walk the next thing out. And when you start to repeat that pattern, because then the last step in that is glorifying God along the way and giving him praise, even when it doesn't look like it. Like even in the natural, when things look yucky, being able to say, okay, supernaturally, God, I know that I'm your daughter and you're going to provide for me and we're going to be okay no matter what that looks like. And those elements that I just walked through and stepped through, it wasn't easy. I'm not going to pretend it was easy, but they helped me day by day, minute by minute to build up my faith. When I felt like things were falling apart, I would lean on my girlfriends. I would lean on our friends, our church community, our family in the faith to be able to say, I don't know what's the outcome is going to be, with tears streaming down my face and being able to say, I'm not sure what's going to happen next, but I do know that there's going to be a way that we're going to figure this out. So those were the components, those were the elements that I've used in my faith to be able to walk it out. And also, this is kind of the hard part, I think, sometimes in life where I feel like I don't really want or need more character building experiences, but don't we know like that's what matures us? That's what builds the muscles of faith, is actually walking through the hard things. Our muscles, there's nowhere in our body or in our life or in our spiritual life where we're actually strengthened or matured or built or build up those muscles of resilience if we don't actually walk through the hard things. So while I don't necessarily ask for hard things I do welcome them, because I have learned by walking through hard things, number one, I can share my testimony of what God's done and what only God can do. Number two, I can encourage somebody else because they're not walking through the exact same thing, but I can walk shoulder to shoulder and saying, life is hard. It is full of challenges. You're right. It does stink sometimes. And then number three, I can I can remind myself the next time I have to go through something difficult is like, oh, wait a minute, Anita, we've already walked through all these hard things. We can do this again.
And that is fantastic because life wouldn't be life if we had everything fixed for us and if we could walk through, it smoothly, then no one will be doing what you're doing to change the lives of other people. So it's for your experience, it's for the things that you've seen, that you've experienced and gone through, that you can then transfer your knowledge, your insights, your story onto other people to help them walk that path that's probably difficult, dark for them, hard for them, and you're changing lives because of what you've gone through. So well done for that. Thank you so much for that, for the insight you're sharing with us today. Okay. And I know that you help successful working moms, you help people, women, particularly in the corporate space, either to advance their career, to maybe change careers, or when they are that successful, to begin to share their insights and knowledge with other people as consultants and things like that. So, how do you help your clients to set and achieve their career goals, whatever they want to do, while staying true to their values and perhaps their faith?
I love to be able to have conversations with people to see really where they're at to begin with as a baseline. Because I don't think it's a one size fits all. It's really understanding that all the elements of their life, like not only what's important in their career, but what's important for their personal life, their health, their if they're a woman of faith, like what's important in their faith. And we kind of break down all of those elements because I believe that life is it's made up of all those things. It's not, if you can have a lot of money but not be happy. You can be in a marriage but not be satisfied. You can, right? There's all these pieces. You can have children, but maybe paying nannies to help you, which not a bad thing at all, but maybe your heart is wants to be home with them a little bit more often. So first and foremost, it's really understanding where somebody else is coming from so that we can really then put together a personalized plan that says, maybe you want to grow in your career. Okay, let's talk about what the steps are in that. Or maybe you want to transition from one career to another. I believe that for anybody who wants a job, there's always great and abundance options to find something new to do for those that really want to go after that. If you want to transition over to build your own business, if it's time to do that, well, then that's a different path altogether. It's a different mindset, it's a different path. And so really what I love to do is be able to use like I mentioned earlier, a 6-step blueprint that walks our ladies through this process of figuring out what are they good at? How do they find either more opportunities in the workplace or more opportunities in their own business to be able to expand and build a client base around that. The other thing that I love to do because of just the way that my brain works is once we start uncovering the combination of the goals and kind of the problem that we want to solve, then I just get a picture in my mind of, okay, this is the end goal. And I can very quickly lay out for them really a project plan, a verbal project plan. And then we start making notes on that and say, okay, in order to reach this goal, here's the steps that we need to do. And we just work it all the way back because when we want to do something different, every single habit that we have needs to be tracked to and tied to a goal that we want to do. And that I believe that not only needs to happen on, let's say, big picture is maybe an annual basis. Maybe you have a goal that in 1 to 3 years from now, you want to change your job or shift your income or something like that. Well, that can be a big goal. But if I don't break it down to figure out, well, how does that map to what I'm doing every 6 months or what I'm doing quarterly or what I'm doing every month or what I'm doing every week to all the way down to what I'm doing every day. If I don't make that connection of the habits that track to the goal, then I'll always have a disconnect. I'll always feel like in these days, what we find is we're super busy with all these things, but they're not necessarily the tasks that drive to the actual tasks. Here's a perfect example, and this is real practical. I can be really busy as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, doing lots of stuff. But if those activities don't actually map to bringing revenue into my business and I'm not making any money, then I actually have more of a hobby than I do a business. And we don't hobbies are great. We love hobbies. Like I love gardening. That's my hobby. But I don't necessarily want to build a business around gardening. And so what we have to recognize are what are the tasks or the habits that we want to that we want to practice on a daily basis that map to the actual goals that help me to reach the success that I'm looking at. I'll say like success loosely because everybody's definition of success is different. So I'd really challenge somebody who's listening today to say, you have a picture of success, and I would likely state that you're already on the path to be able to look at that success. I would say that you're actually, I'll even challenge somebody today and say that you are likely already walking either towards or in some of the success that you want in your life. And it's not beyond your reach. It's not way out there later. Like there's already success that you're experiencing now today. And so sometimes it's just acknowledging where we've already been successful and doing more of that.
Lovely. So you spoke a lot about, the phases that people go through. How do you particularly address the unique needs of working moms and their aspirations, those who are navigating their career growth as well as motherhood simultaneously?
Mm. So that's a kind of a unique crosshairs that we have sometimes of women and in the workplace and raising kids. What I don't want to do. So let me just be. I'll start with that first. What I don't want to do is have anyone feel like, oh my gosh, I already am working 40 or 50 or 60 or 80 hours a week. And now she's asking me to add on another 20 or 15 or 20 hours on top of what I already do, or another full-time job. Because there's two things that you've mentioned. If I want to transition to another career, either improve the career I'm in or transition to another kind of career, that takes a little bit of time. So oftentimes the ladies that I work with, they might have a little bit more money than they do have time. And time is a absolutely precious commodity. We know that. If I'm already giving my time away to an employer or a business at 40 hours a week or more, it's oftentimes more, then adding more time to our schedule is not necessarily the solution because we don't have that. We don't have that to begin with. And so it's really prescriptively crafting the tasks that it'll take these ladies to be able to say, okay, Anita, I want to be able to build a business on a side, but I'm not willing to like just stop my career. My household needs my income. So oftentimes what we do is we map out a plan that'll have an agreed upon time frame that says maybe it's not going to happen in 30 days or kind of overnight, but we map out a plan that's going to take them through the process. Maybe they decide to, I have one client right now, she's decided prescriptively that it's going to take a little bit longer for her because she has different things that she's doing for her kids. She's helping out with her kids in musical theater right now. And so she wants to be able to give the time that she's promised and dedicated to her employer, and then time that she's already promised and dedicated to her children. And then her time frame looks very different. Another client that I have is more on kind of like the fast and the furious pace. And she's like, hey, I want to get this thing up running now. And I'm willing to have other people come alongside of me and help me with the kids right now so that later I can have freedom with them. So I actually believe that um, there's great power in having both time and money freedom in our lives. I love to have money freedom because that with cash we can actually afford to do a lot of things. So that's great. And inside of the church, I think it would be wonderful if more of us had actually more income coming in so that we could do all the things in the ministries that are right on our hearts. I don't believe that the church in particular is supposed to look um, like we're poor. I just don't. I don't see that modeled in scripture. I think that at least for what I read when I read my Bible, it's that Jesus has abundance for us. And as the church, we want that so that we not in a way that supplants God above money above God or anything. None, I'm not speaking heresy or any nonsense like that. But I do believe that as the church, we look the most beautiful to those that are unchurched when we have the abundance and we're sharing it and we're generous in all these areas of life. So that's just kind of like a little side note. That's what I
Sure.
think scripture shows. Um, so really again, what you're hearing in here, it's individual, right? It's being able to work with each woman and say, okay, on for your specific life, let's figure out what your time frame is, what your goals are, what your trajectory is, what your plan is. How does your husband work into that? How do your kids work into that? What's important right now? I think it's super important when we start on a new coaching experience to have some wins right now. Because oftentimes ladies that come to me, they're overwhelmed, overworked, they're frustrated, they have a lot of stress. Maybe their heart aches. I know me in my career, oftentimes when I was working full time in the tech space and I was working probably on average about 60 to 80 hours a week, when I could hear my kids playing outside with my nanny, and I'd be on mute. It'd be before all the Zoom days, all that kind of stuff. I'd be on mute and have tears rolling down my face. My heart ached so badly to be with my kids full time. And I had amazing ladies that were around me that helped me with the house, that helped me with the kids. Like, I had the best case scenario. And yet I still had a desire to be the primary caregiver for my kids for longer periods of time. So it kind of goes back to those seasons. It's acknowledging the season that we're in and what we want to do, and then figuring out a plan to be able to go and just take that next one step.
That is really, really important. Yeah, taking that next one step. So, are there specific leadership skills or qualities that you find are particularly beneficial for corporate working moms aiming for career advancement? And how do you help, your clients, people you've worked with, to develop these qualities?
Yeah, so there are several of them. I think being able to be a good public speaker and an excellent communicator are key in there. I think being able to connect with people and network in a way that's not salesy or kind of slimy, because nobody likes to be pitched to on a regular basis. The other thing, and I'd kind of like back all that up. I think probably the number one skill that's really important, soft skills, what we're talking about, is really having a mindset. And you can have a mindset to be like an entrepreneur mindset. I believe you can have an entrepreneurial mindset no matter how you get paid. Doesn't matter what your paycheck looks like. If it comes from an employer as a contractor, I don't really care about any of that at all anymore. I can have an entrepreneurial mindset regardless of how my income comes in. And that looks something more like this. And so I walk the ladies in our community through a process of shifting their mindset. As a matter of fact, I have a mastermind that is called The Shift, because I believe that when we're able to shift, almost like when you go to the chiropractor and you have just that tiny little shift in your body and it like changes the trajectory of your whole day or your whole life. I think we do the same thing with our mindset. I think when we're able to shift our mindset just ever so slightly, just by a tiny little degree, don't we know that that actually changes the trajectory of our life altogether? So having a mindset of having a confidence to know that I can peel off from the corporate space and build my own business. Having a mindset to know that as an entrepreneur, I can be a creative problem solver, and having an entrepreneurial mindset of knowing that I can build a team around me again, so that I can go and build a business and find other people that are experts or some of the things that I'm not an expert at. And so having this ability to see how to discern and see how do we solve problems? I don't know how it is in the UK, but I know in America, the school system has been designed to to create more workers. It was that way from the early industrialization of the United States. Schools were created so that big corporations could have more employees, really more workers. And the I'm not against higher education or education as a whole. I love it all. I love learning. I love academia. However, the problem with that is if my mindset is always, I'm just going to do what I'm always told, then, well, then how do I solve problems? How do I even solve problems in my role as an employee if I don't learn how to think outside of the box and really have more of that the critical thinking skills that are cultivated oftentimes as an entrepreneur. We got to figure everything out. We have to, when you're just starting out, oftentimes you have to figure out everything on your own. You have to figure out how do I even start my business and incorporate and how do I build my website and how do I get on social media and post on TikTok and all those great things. And there's so many tiny little choices that we need to make, but it's see how what we're talking about here, it's shifting the mindset to see what's possible. So what I love to do is help ladies with like shifting the mindset to see like this is totally possible, that you can take the skill set that you have, that you've cultivated, that you've grown, that you've been educated in, and you can shift that ever so slightly and serve clients and prospects and a community in completely different ways than you are in the corporate space. You can be wildly successful in that. I know part of my story is I went from working a full-time job, making a really excellent income. And now I work anywhere from between a half and a quarter to that, and I make 3 times as much. And I love working. So it's it's one of those things that if I'm working half the time that I used to, it's because I love what I'm doing. But if I'm working a quarter, it's because I also know that that's possible as well. And there's no change in my income if I decide to work a quarter of what I used to or half of what I used to. I just that's how I've set my business up. And so that's another element for me personally. It's really important for me to have equal amounts of money freedom and time freedom because I'm still homeschooling, right? We're 15 years into the homeschooling journey and I don't that's where God's called us, so we want to be obedient to that. So time is equally important to me personally, as it is to be able to have a healthy income, to be generous because I love I love one of the best gifts that you can have with money and the most fun things that you can do with money are to give it away and be generous with it. So and or buy new things for yourself or your family or whatever that looks like. Don't we know that it's so fun? It's so fun to be able to steward the resources that God's given us in a way that not only help my household, but also help somebody else.
Sure. That is very, very, very important. And one of the things that you talked about was how valuable time can be for everybody. And I believe so many people, whether you're in the corporate space or a working mom or a homeschooling mom, wherever, having that time to be able to spend with our loved ones, because what we know is, once that time is taken off, you can't have it back. So
Yeah.
I believe, so many people would love to be able to spend the time they have, in the most precious ways, they can afford to do. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you support your clients in maintaining a sense of purpose and fulfillment in their professional lives while with their faith and family values being kept all together?
Mm, a good question. I think when we sit down and we come together as a community, the ladies in my community, because we build a supportive community and one that champions one another, not competing with each other, but really genuinely champion one another. We couple that with writing out mission statements for ourselves that say that, hey, I know that this is the path that I'm supposed to be on. So it's kind of both, right? It's part of it is the community mentality that says, I'm going to champion you because you're amazing just the way that God has made you. And again, whether you have a belief system in God or not, that's okay. I have the ability to see that in you, draw out that goal, and encourage you along the way to be able to say, keep going, keep going, keep going. You're on the right path. And so I think it's like twofold for me. It's I want to know my purpose because then I can walk in it. And then I also want to build a community of women where it's a safe place that we can encourage one another and champion one another and say, I see what you're doing is good and I want you to do more of it. Because don't we know in the marketplace, here's something that's really kind of interesting. If I go into the marketplace and I feel like everybody's my competitor, then oftentimes I'm going to operate out of fear. I'm going to operate with kind of a sense of, there's only limited resources. It's a lack mentality, really, what it boils down to. It's a poverty mindset and a lack mentality that says there's not enough to go around. That is just not true. It's just not. There's always more than enough for everybody. So when I walk in my purpose and I cheerlead you to walk in your purpose, because we've talked about it, you've journaled it out, you've determined what that is ahead of time, or as you walk through the 6 steps that I walk through with clients, um, I think the best thing that we can do is just show up and be the ladies that God has created us and called us to be and champion one another. So, I was on a podcast last week and I was asked kind of the flip side of that, or who are the kinds of ladies that you don't work with? The ladies that are not a good fit for me are ones that just my story doesn't resonate with them. There's tons of coaches out there. They can go work with somebody that works with you, somebody whose story resonates with you, somebody whose offer resonates with you, somebody who sees the value in you and can help you the way that you need. Like that's the best coach for you. The other is that when I understand that my experiences and my skill set and my voice are unique to me, I also can recognize that there's nobody else that's like me. So my job is to show up and just be me. And that actually helps it's like a cycle that comes back and says that helps me fulfill my purpose more when I'm walking in who God's called me to be. And I can show up the way that I do. I show up with my hair styled or colored the way that it is, and the clothes that I have and the voice that I have and all those things. That actually empowers each and every one of us to show up and be complementary to one another and serve the marketplace in the way that only we are called to. And what I fully believe with all of my heart is that there's nobody else that can show up the way that Anita can. And so I have a responsibility. I have a moral obligation and a responsibility to show up and serve the audience that I'm called to serve. So I believe that I'm actually called to serve 100,000 women, and that will impact 1 million lives because of the ripple effect that we as moms and wives can make in the community that we serve, both in our family and in our client base and in the communities at large. And so I just show up every day just being the woman that I'm meant to be. And that helps me to fulfill my purpose. It helps me to be peaceful. It helps me to settle in the topic of, do I have to do more, or just show up the way that I exactly am? And then what I do today is it's enough, right? When I get to the end of my day, remember, I've determined, go back to what we talked about at the beginning. I've determined what I'm going to do, but whatever I get done in that day, I've already determined ahead of time that it's going to be enough. Because if I just show up being me and help other women do the same thing, then we're walking in the destiny and the purpose that we already have. If you're a woman of faith, you already know that God's already ordered your steps. And so you need not walk in fear. All you need to do is actually walk that out. So finding a community like what I'm talking about, and our community is very cultivated. It's prescriptively designed to be women who fit this mold of successful corporate women of faith who want to be around other women, because we don't always find that. Not everywhere we go, inside or outside the church, in your community, in your school, in your workplace. My experience has been that not all women are great cheerleaders and champions for one another. It's just the way that it is. We haven't all experienced that. I know I didn't. That wasn't my story growing up or early on in my career. It took time to find and cultivate healthy relationships with other women where we could champion and cheerlead one another, walk shoulder to shoulder, saying, okay, this is what I'm going through. This is what you're going through. Let me help you, but you still have to take the steps that you're destined to take. And so that's just a process. It's why the community that I cultivate is really, really important to me. It's also that I want to protect it for other women. right? For other women that are already in our community, I don't want to bring in somebody who's not willing or able to walk through the steps that we walk through, who's not willing to know that this is a safe place, that we can share our hearts and share our deepest desires and our passions and help us each other walk out that purpose. And so if that sounds a little bit, I guess maybe if it sounds a little bit ethereal to you or not concrete, maybe we're not the right fit for you. That's okay. That's totally okay. Go find your people. That's really the bottom line. If it sounds like a great fit and a community of women that you want to be involved in, then reach out. I'd love to be able to talk to you more. I have a couple of free offers that I'll make sure and share in the show notes, the 6-step blueprint that walks you through the process that we walk through. And then I also have a time management um, free download that you can have as a gift just for listening today. So yeah, and then yeah, you can reach out on social. I'm all over social media. You can either do a Google search for Anita Anello, or you can find my company name, which is therippleeffect.net. And effect is spelt with an A because I genuinely believe that what we do, we have an effect, like the verb, to be able to make changes in our life for the better so that we can positively impact others as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anita, for all the insights you've shared with us today and the knowledge. Definitely, I know those will resonate with your story and where you're coming from, and your insight will definitely get in touch with you. And I'm really so pleased to have you on the show and really honored with all the knowledge you've shared.
Oh,
Yes, we will definitely be adding all of that information to the show notes so people are able to contact you and, benefit from the free gifts and also all other things that you do. So thank you so much. So yes, we are coming to the end of the Ignite Your Leadership Prowess podcast for today, but I would like you to say just one word for that woman, that working mom of faith, or who is just not there yet, on the fence. How do I navigate this journey? What do I do with my faith? Or how do I improve my faith, my career, being a mother, all of those things just there, maybe confused. What one word are you going to be, giving to them today?
courage. Have courage to just take one step forward. If that courage means to change the discipline that you have in the morning, go do that. If that courage means to invest in a coach, go do that. If that courage means to make a decision to leave a job that's not healthy, not good for you, go do that. Whatever that looks like, just have the courage to take that one step forward. If that courage means you don't feel like you have a community around you of women that can be positive mentors, leaders, um, coaches along the way, then find the community. Just have courage.
Just have courage. And that's the word today, courage. That's going to help you a lot. Thank you so much, Anita, for all the insights and for coming on the show. And on that note, this is the end of the Ignite Your Leadership Prowess podcast today. I'm muted Debowali, and until I see you again, keep being the best of who you are.
Thank you so much. Bless you.